Hi, I'm Phil Constantine, and this is Travels with Phil. And in today's episode, we are going to take a trip to the Old State House and the site of the Boston Massacre in Boston, Massachusetts. The Boston Massacre took place on March the 5th at 1770, just outside what is now called the Old State House in Boston. And what we're going to do first is go to the Boston Commons to see a monument that's placed there. Here's a video. Travels with Phil continues. This is the Boston Commons, and this is the Boston Massacre monument or memorial. Crispus Attucks, Samuel Maverick, James Caldwell, Samuel Gray, Patrick Carr. Those are the people who were killed. March 5th, 1770, the British opened fire. It says, in that moment we may date the severance of the British Empire, Daniel Webster, quote, on that night the foundation of American independence was laid. John Adams, this is the Boston Commons here. And then on the backside, it says erected in 1888 by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in honor of those who fell at the Boston Massacre. And now let's go over to the Old State House. Phil continues from Boston. This again is the Old State Building. You can see it here in the middle of downtown Boston. Oops, sorry, don't mean to go too fast there for you. And right here on the spot, it says, site of the Boston Massacre, March 5, 1770. Turn back around there. So that's the actual spot itself. This is at Congress and State, Devonshire. There's several different roads coming together right here, but this is the actual scene of the Boston Massacre itself in Boston itself. All of that itself. And this is Phil himself. Travels continue. And the Boston Massacre basically happened. There was one soldier outside the building here where the money was kept for the king, and a crowd came up, started harassing him, and eventually he asked for help. Other people came. John Adams eventually wound up defending the British soldiers. Most of them were found not guilty. This is where they were buried, the men who died there. Travels with Phil continues. These are the 5 people who were buried or killed at the Boston Massacre, victims of the Boston Massacre. Samuel Gray, Samuel Maverick, James Caldwell, Crispus Attucks, and Patrick Carr. This is victims of the Boston Massacre, lay interred here by order of the town of Boston. Also lies buried the body of Christian Snyder. Travels with Phil will continue. The Old State House itself is an interesting spot, has all kinds of history now. It's been going on since around 1712, has had numerous incarnations. It was a mercantile, it was a state house. All of the British government in North America was ruled from here at one point. So it has done lots of things. There's an old picture from 1898, I believe it is, right around 1900. Travels with Phil continues. This is the Old State House in downtown Boston. You can definitely see lots of downtown around here, but this is one of the scenes of the earlier incidents of the American Revolution, and also the scene of the Boston Massacre. So the Old State House in downtown Boston. And there was a lot going on in the Boston Massacre. It wasn't just a simple case of British soldiers, going crazy and shooting at a bunch of colonists. There was basically a riot, and the soldiers may have overreacted, but again, they were taken to court. And of the 8 or 9 soldiers that were there, most of them were acquitted, and a couple of them were found guilty of manslaughter. The worst penalty that was handed out was a branding on his hand. And again, John Adams, the second president of the United States, defended the soldiers, basically saying that they were just trying to defend themselves and acted inappropriately, as opposed to just a flagrant effort to go out and kill colonists. The ongoing battles that were going through this area and the confrontations, this was between the folks in Boston that did not like the British trying to rule no taxation without representation. You can see all kinds of documents in here, some of the an actual hat from the time of Thomas Melville, and this he was involved in the Boston Tea Party. So Boston was very, very much involved in the early goings-on of the American Revolution. Boston, New York, Philadelphia, the major sites of events that were going on. Musket from Bunker Hill, now that happened just across the Charles River. Have another video for that. Charlestown to be specific, but a suburb of Boston itself. John Hancock. It says here, this is his coat. Looking at it, very nicely done velvet coat, brocade vest, waistcoat as they might call it then, ruffled shirt, so they dressed fairly nicely back then, and his personal box. Now this is where the government took place for quite some time in the British Empire. They ruled most of North America from here. This is where the governor of Massachusetts, or the governor's court of Massachusetts, took place. Lots of things you can see inside the building itself. It is now a museum that's run by a Boston historical organization. At one point they had talked about tearing the building down. Now it's the oldest building in Boston. They had talked about tearing it down, and the citizens got together, formed a historical society, and preserved it and made sure that it lasts through to today. There's been a couple of fires. The original building from the 1600s burned down around 1710. Again, this one was the external part was rebuilt in 1711. They had some internal problems, and some of that had to be repaired, and then eventually the entire building was repaired. But you can see lots of artifacts here. This is on the Freedom Trail in Boston, a certain pathway that you can follow through the town. It is not on the Boston Commons. It is away from there. The monument over there for the Boston Massacre is at a different place, which sort of struck me as interesting. But there's two monuments to the Boston Massacre in Boston, Massachusetts, one in the Boston Commons and the one at the actual scene where it took place here. And this is in the middle of downtown. You're going to see lots and lots of tall buildings surrounding the old State House in Boston, Massachusetts. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up by clicking on the button below. You're welcome to leave comments below as long as the language is family friendly. And finally, if you'd like to see more of my videos, please subscribe to my channel by clicking the button over on the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you again for watching.